Okay, so today I have a little bit of a different video, and this is the first video I'm going to do that I'm going to try and do some heavy editing in, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, for this video I'm just going to have some random gameplay in the background to entertain your eyeballs, but I'm actually going to be talking about the population of ESO, and not that it's declining or anything. The game is actually doing pretty well in a lot of different ways, but rather the often debated, who has more players, PvE, PvP, whatever, because we actually kind of have a more concrete answer now. For a while it was just speculation, but after a recent conversation in a Twitch stream, we have a pretty concrete answer from one of the devs themselves, Rich Lambert. I'll go ahead and play the clip now. So in this clip, keep an eye on the Twitch chat. This is Ninja614's channel. He's a great friend of mine, and I did ask him for permission to do this. So yeah, keep your eyes out.
Feel like PvE is a pain in the ass and a nuisance, but there are those of us who enjoy both sides, and there are many who don't even like PvP at all. And honestly, I think the large... Rich, you may be able to back this up or not. I don't even know if you can say that. Whether you are allowed to say it or not, but I feel like the overwhelming majority of the players in this game are not PvPers. Most of the players in this game are PvE focused, and will dabble in PvP maybe sometimes. As long as you can weave and understand your skill, you don't have to worry about being totally screwed over. That's not true, Naya. Not if we're talking about groups that are trying to progress through the most difficult. It's not overwhelming. Okay. But it is a higher portion. The crowd in Silver at least full of mostly regulars, what I've seen. Y'all need PVH. What's up, Soul Breacher? How you doing? Majority of players are RPers. Yeah, so, I mean, the majority of players are PvEers, and a few, this is just a guess, but if you said, hey, some weird thing happened, and you have to choose. You can only do a PvP now, or you can only do PvE. I bet you an even larger portion would just go, fine, we'll just do PvE. There's a lot of folks that don't care about gear abilities, even, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So in that conversation, we were kind of talking about the new patch that came out for Dragonhold, or at least the PTS patch notes. We're kind of talking about what got changed, what got screwed, what didn't. And it turns out that /Lurk, the user that you see in the Twitch chat, is the creative director for ESO. His name is Rich Lambert. And as we were talking about, the population, he was able to kind of confirm of who is actually the population of the game. It's not PvEers, it's not PvPers, it's role players. Now, the thing about that statement is that there's, role players and people who just role play. If you want to see what a role player is, go to Riften. There are typically a lot of role players in Riften. And if you also think about the fact that role players are also typically PvEers. Any role players who engage in in-game activities are often PvEers. They don't really get into PvP that much. So any role players would also technically be considered more casual PvEers. So I actually started this game as a role player. I know a couple other PvEers and PvPers who started this game as role players as well. So obviously this game has a very rich roleplay history. In fact, one of the more popular Twitch partners on the ESO Twitch directory, T the Khajiit, she's a role player, and I've known her ever since I started playing the game almost 4 years ago, because I did roleplay with her once or twice. So you have that kind of roleplay, but then you also have the roleplay of just casual players who run around and not care about what they're doing. You can also see /Lurk or Rich Lambert saying, there's a lot of folks that don't care about gear or abilities even. Heh. I'm quoting him directly there. And that's very true. As a role player, I didn't really care that much about my build. My first character that I got, like, quote-unquote meta advice on from someone who watched a lot of Deltia, who was also a role player, my first, like, endgame-esque build was a Magicka Templar, and then later on I got into Nightblade a lot more. because the first characters I made were Stamina and Stamina Nightblade, and then I switched to Magicka, so it was Nightblade and Templar the entire time, and then later on I just went to Nightblade, which is what you see me playing now most of the time, although the background footage is me playing Stamina Templar, kind of my return to that. The video itself is actually really fun. I had a lot of fun there. But it was, oh god, I can't remember. It was Seducer, Willpower Jewelry. I don't remember the month. I think I had Engine Guardian Helmet. Oh, and by the way, I was trying to be a DPS / healer. So, I mean, I guess I kind of had the right gear for a healer-ish. But I was dual-wielding Torg's Pack's swords. And I don't remember what my staff was. I think my staff was just a random staff. That's what my build was. Later on, I kind of took a similar approach with Nightblade, except rather than, like, you know, towards pack staves or whatever, I just did, you know, the staff. I didn't do anything special like that. And then I started, you know, using Valken Scoria and other stuff like that. And, you know, that was my build as a role player. And I considered myself primarily a PvE player because I did the dungeons. I did the vet dungeons, although I did get carried quite a bit. I did about 15k DPS. And this was back when, I'd say, this is before Morrowind. So sustain was really easy. I'm not really sure what the damage meta was, but I was doing like 25k when I actually started figuring my shit out, which is good. But like I was often told back then that 20k is the minimum DPS that you want to do, and I still consider that to be a staple, especially after Somerset. After Somerset, if you're not doing 20k DPS, then we need to look at your build and figure out what you're doing wrong, because Somerset increased everyone's damage by a considerable amount when they buffed light attacks. So I considered myself a PvEer, because that's the content I did. I did roleplay and I did PvE. And I almost never went into Cyrodiil, like, ever. I think I went in once just to get Caltrops. And that was quite a bit later, actually. So, even then, I very rarely touched Cyrodiil. So, from this, we can kind of confirm that, yeah, it's not PvE or PvP that's the biggest. It's really just people who are having fun with the game. Or, as a lot of people call them, role players. Personally, though, I have often been saying that PvE is what makes money, and that's typically true. You know, that's the reason we don't get a lot of PvP expansions, and that we get more PvE-oriented expansions, is because PvE makes money, and that is typically true. But now that we have this kind of information, I also wonder, why doesn't ZOS do more quest zones? They only do 2 dungeon expansions and then like 2 quest zones. You'd think that if PvE is going to make them, or not PvE, but like questing and stuff is going to make them more money, then wouldn't they do 3 quest zones a year and then 2 dungeons? I guess it's probably easier to do dungeons than it is quests, so I won't even get into that. I would like to take a quick look at the financial side of ZeniMax. As you can see on screen, ZeniMax received quite a lot of money back in 2010 from a company called Providence Equity Partners. Now, Providence Equity Partners is one of those companies that invests in other companies and then will at some point call back on that investment, and, well, that's how they make their money. So this can kind of help explain why Bethesda and ZeniMax have been a little bit more aggressive with their monetization, such as, you know, the Creation Club or Fallout 76, and the fact that they've gotten into the mobile market, which is the most profitable gaming market in the world right now. It's the mobile market. So Providence has a tendency to kind of test the waters with a little investment, which is what they've done here. And then I believe there was also another investment that they did in like 2014 or around the time of Fallout 4. And then they will determine if they should buy out the company, which I'm not a huge fan of that idea, because even though ZOS and Bethesda make mistakes, I quite like the company as it is compared to what Providence might do to it. So I'm hoping that's not the case, but I just thought I'd put that out there so everyone can be educated on the matter. It's interesting. Otherwise, have a nice day, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the video.